$100 is a great deal for a PS5 if I can fix it. A viewer named Brandon contacted me and said that he had a PS5 that had a broken fan connector, and the PS5 would also shut down almost immediately after it started up. He said he'd sell it to me for $100 in hopes that I can make a video out of fixing it. So let's take a look and guess and see if we can figure out what might have happened here. We definitely have a broken fan connector. I'm guessing maybe this PS5 was shutting down quickly after startup, and so the seller or someone that the seller knew took it apart to see if they could fix that problem, and unfortunately broke the fan connector off. So probably the first thing we need to do is to fix this fan connector and then start it up and see if we get it to shut down. But while I'm fixing the fan connector, I'm also going to take a look at the liquid metal. The liquid metal is a very common thing that can cause this problem. So let's take a look at that while we have the motherboard out to fix the fan. Okay, we've got all the thermal paste in where it should be. Some of the first things I think of when a PS5 is shutting off, a lot of times that's caused by overheating. So one of the first things I'm going to look at is the heat sinks. Another thing I'm going to look at is the power supply and see if the power supply ventilation holes are plugged with dirt and hair. And then we're also going to be checking the APU and the liquid metal on it. Feels like, I don't know, this is pretty stuck down, so there we go. Now let's flip this over and have a look at this liquid metal. Okay, actually not too bad of a dry spot. This is actually sort of better than I expected, although I'm not sure there's enough liquid metal on here to make enough contact. There's a good sized blob on the heatsink side, so that could be okay. So the next thing we need to check are the heat sinks and then also the power supply ventilation. Let's see if they're plugged. Oh, not bad at all. These are nice and clean actually. And then the power supply. I don't know if somebody has already cleaned this, but this is just completely clean. So I don't think that's an issue. So what I'm gonna do now is just take the motherboard and replace that fan connector. Then we'll get the motherboard installed. I'll add a little bit of liquid metal and make sure it's all spread around nicely. Then we'll put the heatsink back on, get the rest of it together, and then we can test it. A while back I made a video about a PS5 that was ran over that I tried to fix. Unfortunately, I was not able to fix it, and I wasn't sure there was gonna be too many parts that I could use off of the board, but this is a part that I definitely can use. I'm gonna steal this fan connector because the fan connector for the PS5 that I bought for $100 is not there, so I'm gonna steal this fan connector off of this board so we can install it onto the $100 PS5 board. How I'm gonna do this is heat it from the underside, and then that will melt the solder on all of these little joints over here, and that will remove this from the board safely without damaging anything, you know, if I do it right. Now I'm gonna slow down and just go right where I need that heat. There we go, and got it. So what you're gonna see me do next is take a little grinding pin and grind away the solder mask on these traces on the board. I'm gonna be offsetting the connector just a little bit. The mounting pads have been torn off of the board, so I need to move it over just a little bit to enable me to mount it back onto the board. Once I grind off the solder mask, there are two places that I need to add a little bit of wire to enable me to solder those pins to the pads on the board. The pads have been torn off, the ends of them have been torn off, so I need to replace those ends with some wire, and that wire will sort of lengthen the pads so I can connect the pads to the pins on the connector. Once that's all done, I'll put a little bit of conformal coating on, and that will just protect all of these traces. You can see it just kind of sucking up under the connector, and that's exactly what we want. Now let's get this back installed and we'll get that liquid metal taken care of. I don't remember if I have any more liquid metal in this tube. We don't need a ton more on here. Oh yeah, we got more. I'm gonna rub this around now. Yeah, this dry spot really isn't too bad. Now we're just gonna do the same thing over here. The goal here is just kind of rub off any of this oxidation on here. And this one wasn't too bad either. I do want to add just a little bit more liquid metal. Got to make sure there's the perfect amount on here. Got a little bit on there. There we go. There we go, that's pretty good. Now we can get this thing reassembled and see if it's going to work after all that. Okay, and this conformal coating is getting pretty dry. It's pretty tacky right now, but still not enough to super glue it. So I'm going to put it together still enough to test it, and then I can come back and glue it later. But that is looking pretty good, and it's fairly strong. It definitely has some wiggle to it, but it is still fairly strong for what we had to work with. Here we go. Yep, works great. Okay, and that's together enough to test. Now let's get it plugged in and see if it'll turn on and see if it'll overheat once it is turned on. Okay, let's see if there's power to the disk drive. Yes, there is. Power to the console. Yes. The fan also does start up right away. That's good news. Let's see if we get a signal on the screen. So it did restart. Oh, come on. Good. We almost had it. Okay, it's restarting again. I don't know if that's good or not. Come on. Yes, we've got the PS logo. That's great news. Now I'm just gonna get it set up and we'll see how long it'll last before it overheats, if it does. Hopefully it won't at all, but uh-oh, it just turned off. That's not great news. So we know the fan is working, the fan connector is working. I think what I'm gonna try next is replacing the power supply, because that's something that could easily cause this type of an issue. If it's not the power supply, it's probably something on the board, and I'm not sure that's gonna be something we can fix, but let's try the power supply first. Of course, in order to get to the power supply, we have to take all this stuff back off, including this fan connector. So I'll show you how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna hold down on the fan connector with my fingernail while I pull up on the part that's supposed to come out. So the part that's connected to the board, I'm gonna hold down with my fingernail. Hopefully you can see this, while I wiggle back and forth and pull up on the actual fan connector part that's attached to the fan. That seemed to work fine. Now I'm gonna undo all that stuff I just did so we can get to the power supply. So we can remove the old one and install the, hopefully the working one. I don't actually know. This one is not, I don't remember what this is from or if it even works, so hopefully it does. Now I do still have to put on the Wi-Fi antennas. I'm gonna wait to do that until I get this back together and test and see if that power supply even works. Disk drive has power. Power to the console. Okay, we have power again. That's good news so far. Okay, black screen. Processing. Okay, it's repairing. That's fine. Repairing console storage. Okay. Okay, this is where we got before. And then it turned off right around here. Come on. Still on, that's good. Did we fix this one? There we go. So far it looks great. I'm gonna go through and get this set up, but I think this $100 PS5 is all fixed. The price of a new power supply is about $65, so I paid about $165 for this PS5, and obviously it took a little bit of time for me to fix, but overall I think that was a pretty good deal. Now I did steal the part I needed from a junk PS5 board. This board is from a PS5 that was ran over that I tried to fix. If you want to see that video, I'll put that video up on your screen now so you can come hang out with me over there. Thanks so much for watching today. If you want to buy some of our new merch, including this shirt right here, go to TronicsFix.com, and I hope you have a good one.